right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thyroid Healthy Balance. My name's Megan Taslaman, and I'm a thyroid naturopath. And I've been a naturopath since 2015, and I've been in the health and wellness space since about 2002, where I studied remedial massage. I did a diploma of aromatherapy, and I did reflexology. And then I decided at about 2008, 2009, I decided I wanted to know what was going on inside the body. So then I did a Bachelor of Health Science, majoring in naturopathy. And hence, since 2015, I've been practicing as a naturopath. And really, after about 2 or 3 years, I noticed a huge gap in the industry. And I just happened to naturally be gravitating all of these people that needed support with their thyroid. So because I have a thyroid condition, I think it's really interesting how sometimes what you're putting out, you're mirroring and, you're attracting that type of personality to you. And I just found it just made sense to just specialize in that area. So we've had the Thyroid Restoration Roadmap where we help people transform their health across 4 months. We've been doing that since 2002. We're going into our third year really strongly. And, today we're going to be talking about inflammation and how that is often the driver behind your thyroid condition, but not just not just a thyroid condition. Inflammation is really kind of a broad term that underpins many chronic diseases. And, it's really interesting because when we're looking at reestablishing harmony and bringing healing to the thyroid, what happens is we're actually helping all other areas in the body, because when we're quenching the free radicals and lowering the inflammation, because we get to the root cause of what's going on, so therefore we're actually healing the inflammation and sorting everything out, that's when, just like all ships rise with the incoming tide, we're actually healing all other areas of our health and wellness. And it's really exciting to see, because I just had a beautiful meeting with a beautiful client of mine. I'm not going to mention her name. And I've been working with her for about 12 months now. And we've got to that stage where she is not just surviving, she is absolutely thriving. And we're still going to be working together for the next 3 or 4 months because of her 12-month container. And I thought, you know what? We really need, we're just going to be going beyond the beyond. So we're working on mindset. We're elevating her in all other areas of her life because her health is so on track. She's healed her gut issues. Her energy's come back online. Her immune system is now regulated. She said, I just feel so fit. I feel so well. She's dropped so much weight. And I thought, okay, well, let's get you to the next level now. So now we're really working on exercise and a regime that's going to just bring her and elevate her to that next level of fitness, of resilience and beyond, because she's already feeling great. So what do? Do we just stop there? No, because health is expansive. So we're just going to that next level. And I just love working with people when we're at that stage, because we're not just seeing the transformation, we're just seeing the elevation. And I absolutely, that's why I love what I do, because it's like, well, you're not just healed, you're just looking so brilliant and bubbly and resilient and strong. And, it just builds so much confidence in an individual. So I'm super excited to be working in this space. So anyway, I digress. So let's get back to, what we're talking about today, which is all about inflammation. And let me just say, like, if you're coming on here in the replay, please just drop a hashtag replay or hashtag recording so that we know that you've watched this. And certainly if you're wanting some support or wanting some help along the way, we're here to support you. We're here to help you. So ask any question. Alrighty, so here we are. Inflammation. Now, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking about understanding inflammation, and just so that you understand what that internal fire is all about. I'm going to be talking about the thyroid inflammation connection and why inflammation can really propel the disease process for thyroid and autoimmune, specifically thyroid, with what actually happens in the body. I'm going to also be talking about the emotional and environmental drivers, these hidden sources of inflammation. Now, I'm also going to be talking about LDN, which is called low dose naltrexone. Now, a lot of people with thyroid and autoimmune challenges are taking low dose naltrexone. And I'm just going to be talking about that. Like, it's not bad. It's not good either. It's just something that for some people it benefits. But you know what? It's not the whole answer. And what we don't want to do is just be taking a thing, expecting that thing to do all the job for us. So I just want to just lean into that a little bit. And then I'm going to be talking about the pathways to calm the fire. And hopefully within the half an hour, or it might be a little bit longer, I'm going to be talking about this. Nutritional management of thyroiditis of Hashimoto's. This is a super interesting review. It goes through everything. And I find it really, really interesting. And it also talks about LDN, so I'm going to be talking and referring to this so that you can actually see a little bit of the evidence that backs up what I'm talking about today as well. So who's excited? Give me a heart, give me a thumbs up, give me one of those overhand, woo! Because you know what? This is exciting, because when you know what to do for your body and you know the root cause and you know the healing and you know what's driving the inflammation, that is super exciting. And I get it. You may not be feeling all that great right now. You might be feeling fatigued. You might have some gut issues. You might have some weird rash thing going on. You might have some hair fall. And you know what? I've been there. I've 100% been there. And I know what it feels like to be totally not in control of your health, where it feels like there's another driving force behind it. And that driving force, ladies and gents, is inflammation. Which is born from a complete disconnect between the brain and the body, a complete discordance, right? So, you've got your hormones trying to bring yourself back into balance, and, things are going in the wrong direction. And so there's a discord. That's what really underpins inflammation. All right. Okay. So if you're jumping in here, say hello. Let me know where you're from. I'd love to know where you're from. We've had clients over in the US. We've had clients from New Zealand, all different areas of Australia. And yeah, let me know where you're from. I always love to hear where you're chiming in from. Okay, right. So first of all, let me talk about the internal fire. Now, inflammation, it is part of the immune system's healing response. We are supposed to have short-term inflammation. That's what brings those white blood cells and gets everything into gear to bring about healing. All right? It's the long-term chronic inflammation that causes the damage and ultimately the fatigue. Okay? So this chronic, it's like a smoldering ember that keeps signaling the body that something is wrong. Okay? And it's up to us to really take pause and realize that something is wrong and really drill down and start to correct what's going on and bring that balance back. So where do we begin? Well, we begin where the inflammation begins. So first of all, we look at all the dietary triggers. I call this low-hanging fruit. And everyone who comes into my thyroid restoration roadmap, this is an element of where we start. So while we're doing all the bespoke functional testing, yada, 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 we're looking at what I call the low-hanging fruit. And it's like, okay, well, what are the obvious contenders that are coming in? Where are the seed oils? You know, where are the trans fats? You know, when's the last time you had a croissant or a pastry? You know, trans fats, okay? Even though they're yummy, and even though you might be over in France, it's still trans fats, okay? So when's the last time you cooked with sunflower oil? You know, these are inflammatory oils. These are just tiny little examples. They are everywhere. And you really have to be a super duper detective. You know, just like the other day, you know, I bought butter. Now, admittedly, I was in the supermarket, I was busy. You know, that one of those hectic days where you're behind, you know, you haven't got everything done, and you're still late, and you haven't even got dinner started, and you've got to get home, and, you know, all of the things. And I was in the supermarket, and I couldn't, you know, when you're in a different supermarket and you don't know where anything is. I don't like supermarkets. I actually loathe them. I try not to shop in them, but, you know, sometimes you've got to do what's, you know, close by. And I just thought, okay, I'm just going to I needed butter. So I went and got a butter, and it was like, oh yeah, organic. I think it was called Mainland. I couldn't find the regular organic butter that so I just thought, okay, that says organic, it's Mainland, you know. So here I am, I grabbed my organic butter, and I bring it home, and then later on I thought, oh, I didn't look at the ingredients. So I looked at the ingredients, and I'm like, oh, number one ingredient, canola oil. Are you serious? This is supposed to be butter, you know, butter, and it was 100% organic, and the number one ingredient was canola oil. So here's the thing, you know, like, it's so easy to get it wrong because there's so many marketing tricks. So you really need to be your own best detective and read the label. You know, it's so easy to get it wrong. You know, I've been working in this space for decades, and I bought the wrong butter, and I bought an inflammatory butter. Who would have thought, right? It's easy to get it wrong. Okay, so we look at all of these dietary triggers, the processed foods, the excess sugar, the damaged fats, the alcohol, you know, anything else that's going in. Now, let me just talk about alcohol for a little bit. Now, I love my glass of red wine too. I thoroughly enjoy it. I savor it. It's really beautiful. I enjoy it. It's like a beautiful food match. However, and a beautiful you know, red wine with high amounts of resveratrol, you know, that comes through the grape, and it's organic. You know, it can be really good for you. It can actually be beneficial for your thyroid, right? Beneficial, anti-inflammatory. However, we're talking this much, right? So it's not whether you do it or don't do it often. It's how much. You know, so often we think, oh yeah, I drink alcohol. Is that bad? Well, it's like, well, how much do you have? When do you have it? How often do you have it? What type do you have? These are the type of questions you know, if that I would be asking you. And if I'm not asking you, uh, whoever you're working with, or even if you're working on your own, you know, ask yourself this. Because when we're empowered to make the right decisions for ourselves, it comes from knowledge and understanding. So when we have the knowledge and understanding, then we can apply that to our own life. Okay, now that's just one example. You could actually use this example for everything. You know, like if someone could say to me, oh, muesli bars, are they good for you? I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no. Did you make it at home in your Thermomix? Or did you buy it? You know, is it a trusted brand? Do you know the background story of that brand? All of this takes a lot of time, a lot of research, and a lot of understanding, and it really requires you to have your finger on the pulse at all times. Now, who has time for that? A lot of people don't, unless you're really super interested in your health and wellness. A lot of people don't. This is where me and my team can just take the stress out of the whole picture, because we have our finger on the pulse. Except for when I'm behind the time and I didn't get home and I had to get the butter, and, you know, you heard that story before, right? You know, I'm human, right? We're only human. But, you know, we have our finger on the pulse. You know, myself, Leanne, Shell, we all know what's going on. You know, these ladies have been working with me for several years. Leanne has done the thyroid restoration roadmap with me as a client years ago. Shell has been with me for 3 years, 3+ years. I've been working as a naturopath in this space for years. So if you're wanting, someone to actually take the stress out of all of this decision making, look no further, because we're your team. Okay? So dietary triggers are huge in terms of inflammation. And even in here, it talks about some relatively healthy foods that can actually be triggers because of their molecular targets. Okay? So I'll go through that soon. Actually, I'll be writing a blog on this because there's no way I'm going to be able to go through all of this on this live training. All right? So watch this space. All right, so environmental triggers. This is another cause for inflammation. We've got toxins, we've got molds, we've got plastics, we've got xenoestrogens. So what is a xenoestrogen? Well, that is an estrogen. It's not a real estrogen. It's like a fake estrogen, but it mimics in estrogen, so it will have a effect in your body, and it comes from plastics. It is the main cause for hormonal imbalance, where women have too high estrogen, even men have too high estrogen. It's the testosterone is aromatase into estrogen, so their testosterone levels are really low. This is what's happening. Why is there such a high level of infertility across the planet? I would say it's because of xenoestrogens, all right, as well as, DDT in the soil and glyphosate on all of the food and all of these other toxins, okay? So this is what we're up against. So understanding what's in your environment and if it's impacting your body. Recently I did a detox test on one of my clients because, there's so many weird things going on in her body. And, we've done the gut function test, we've done, all these other tests, So it was like, well, let's just see what else is going on. Are there any, toxic metabolites that are coming into your body that are just setting up and creating a lot of havoc? So we did a detox, tox detect, which basically goes through and it looks at glyphosate and all these different xenoestrogens and plastics and all these other types of chemicals that are in the environment that are man-made, that come through things like your products and food packaging and the air that we're breathing and the contaminants on the food that we're eating, because depending on our genetic predisposition, we might be a little bit more vulnerable to actually being impacted by these types of toxins. So, if you're a sensitive type, this is where I look. This is where we look, because if you happen to have that level of sensitivity where it's what I call you're the canary in the coal mine, so you may resonate. You may resonate with this. So let me know if you resonate. Are you a canary in the coal mine? So you can imagine a beautiful little tweet bird canary in the coal mine. Like, oh my goodness, like it would be massive overwhelm and anxiety for that little canary. Are you a canary in the coal mine? A lot of my clients are, because with thyroid complexities, we're highly sensitive individuals. I'm not quite the canary in the coal mine. I'm probably half a canary in the coal mine. I've probably got a foot in. I do have a level of sensitivity. I'm nowhere near as sensitive as what I used to be, because I've brought my immune system back into regulation and into balance. But certainly I have had levels of heightened sensitivity in the past, and a lot of my clients do. So, that is just something to consider when we're looking at environmental toxins. So let me know if you feel like you're a canary in the coal mine. All right, so other things like hidden infections. Do you have hidden infections? For example, the Epstein-Barr virus. You may have had glandular fever or chickenpox or herpes or any of these types of viruses. They're all part of the same family. And unfortunately, they kind of once they're in your body, they tend to stay there for life, and they hide away in the dorsal horn of the nervous system, and they just come out at times of stress. They just know when to come out. No, why is it when we're stressed you get the cold sore or the herpes outbreak or the glandular inflammation, right? This is because of these viruses. So if you've had any of these types of viral diseases in the past, you're probably going to be vulnerable to them kind of coming out to play here and there when you're under stress. So this is where it's really important to understand that that is a potential trigger and to treat that, because we can definitely, by using certain herbs and different nutritional protocols, we can really maintain balance in your immune system and keep these viral loads down in your body. So that is super important, because there are certain foods that trigger and feed these viruses and certain conditions that fuel these outbreaks as well. Stress being a major one. All right, which leads me to the next. Stress load. Okay, before I go into that, hidden infections, also talking about bacterial infections, dysbiosis in the gut, Citrobacter, Klebsiella, these types of bacteria that when they're in overgrowth can cause considerable dysbiosis within the gut and also cause leaky gut. All right. And they can break down the secretory IgA, which is that gut barrier. We've got our first line of defense, our immune defense, our first line of immune system defense within the lining, that mucosal lining of the gut barrier. So these types of bacterias and also some parasites can really break that down. So we want to really strengthen and fortify that. But we won't know that that's a potential inflammatory cause until we understand more about what's going on in your body. And that's why we do the deep dive into the root causes and understand what's going on there through targeted functional testing. Let me just ask you, who here, if you're watching the recording, who here has had any level of functional testing done? Now, with functional testing, I'm not talking about pathology, so I'm not talking about a blood test. I'm talking about like a gold standard gut function test where they test the stool, or I'm talking about like a Dutch Plus test or a hormonal assay test where they test your hormones across the day and the night within your saliva and in your urine as well. I'm also talking about a hair tissue mineral analysis where they're looking at your minerals and the ratios and heavy metals and other types of additional metals within your hair, which comes through there and creates a timeline due to the blood supplying the hair follicle. And I'm also talking about that's it. Yeah, blood spot test as well. So we can do a blood spot test for immune system function, food inflammation, and these types of things. So I'd love to know if you've had any level of functional testing. Just drop functional test and what have you done? What have you done and what did it reveal? Because some of you here in this community are well and truly on your way to healing and you're really getting to the root cause. And I'd love to know whether that's you. And if you haven't done any functional testing at all, that's okay, because how would you know unless you know? It's not going to be recommended to you by your doctor or your endocrinologist. I can tell you that now. So if you haven't done any functional testing, let me know that as well. Just drop here whether you've done it and what you've done, or if you haven't done any functional testing, because it's just really, really great to have that level of information about your body, because otherwise you could be really, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Like, how do you really know what's driving the inflammation behind your thyroid condition? Yeah. All right, I'm just going to have a look at the chat here for a sec. Just pause here for a moment. Any questions coming in? And I can't really see the questions. All right, I'm going to have to come back later on. Certainly ask any questions along the way. Alrighty, so now I'm going to talk about the other driver, which is stress load. Okay, stress comes through emotions. It comes through physical stress, mental strain, overwork, and this type of stress never switches off. And it absolutely can cause inflammation in the thyroid because it's called the cortisol hijack. So we're just going to go into that now because I'm realizing the time. So the cortisol hijack is the chronic level of cortisol, and that will suppress your TSH and it will impair the transaction or the transition of T4 to T3. All right, and it will also result in high levels of reverse T3, okay, which results in low and unstable energy. Okay. The other thyroid inflammation connection is the cytokine block. So this is where inflammation from all of those avenues that I explained before, they create inflammatory cytokines, like interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and these block thyroid hormone receptors. And even if your blood looks normal, like sometimes your cells can't hear what's going on with your thyroid's message. So this is where, we really need to look at the thyroid through the lens of looking through at the whole body. We need to look at your body as a whole organism, not just looking at the single thyroid gland. Okay, so this is what's really super important, and unfortunately what's being missed all of the time, most of the time, what I find. So, your thyroid doesn't get sick in isolation. It's a response to the environmental imbalance. It's a response to the inflammation. It's a response to, all of these other types of imbalances within your body, So it's like your thyroid is like, it's like the puppeteer, and it has the strings, and it's being pulled from pillar to post, and it's trying to bring you back into balance. That's what your thyroid is trying to do. It's trying to bring back homeostasis, which is balance within your body. So when it's out of balance, it's because there's other things that have not been addressed. And dare I say, that's the root cause or root causes or the exacerbating factors. So we don't just look at the thyroid, we look at these other areas. We look at your gut function. We look at the environmental triggers, what's going on with your diet, what's going on with your sleep, what's going on with your stress. Is your stress unmanaged? Is it, one of my newer clients at the moment, has already found one of her root causes, and that is, this overdrive, this, she describes herself as a perfectionist and is always in that overdriven state to achieve more, to achieve more. And, this has created instability within her nervous system and causing inflammation and too much cortisol and too much stress in her body. And yes, we're doing functional testing to see exactly what's going on with the hormones, but we already know that that's the place to look because of the signs and symptoms. Okay. All right. So the autoimmune loop. So chronic inflammation triggers the immune confusion. So your body starts attacking the thyroid tissue, and this is Hashimoto's, all right, or Graves'. So essentially, the thyroid becomes the victim and the responder to the inflammation cycle. So we need to actually circuit break that and actually address the inflammation, all right? Okay, so let's look beyond food, the emotional and environmental triggers. So these are the hidden sources of inflammation, emotional strain, mental overload. I'd love you to just really get a pen to paper and just write down what you feel is most likely you. And just jot it down here in the chat. Even if you're watching the replay, jot it down in the chat. And we're here to help. And, when you can really pinpoint what the overarching driver of this inflammation is, that's where you know where to start. So the other one is poor sleep and burnout. You know, the body loses its natural repair window between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., which is the liver phase. So we want to be having deep restorative sleep during that time. You know, is your sleep disturbed? Are you going through perimenopause or menopause and you've got night sweats that are impacting your sleep and therefore tripping on and actually impacting your thyroid? Right? There are many different scenarios. So is that for you? Environmental trigger. You know, have you considered the perfume that you're using? You know, perfumes contain harmful chemicals. And where do we spray our perfume? I haven't done it for years. But you know, like using essential oils as opposed to these toxic perfumes, even though they might smell nice, they have all these chemicals that are very damaging to the thyroid. So we don't want to be putting them anywhere near our glands, you know, like our pulse points, no good. You know, essential oils are fine. All right, so where else with there's so many, you know, I'm just giving you a handful. Plastics, have a look at, you know, your Tupperware, you know, have you resolved, you know, are you heating things up in the microwave in plastic? Like that's the big no-no. I don't care if it says microwave safe. It is not safe. It is not safe. Okay, so, you know, get rid of the plastic, or don't necessarily get rid of it, but, you know, put it in the shed. It's good for nails and screws and all those types of things. No good for food. Alrighty, so mold, of course, yeah, that requires a deep dive of detective work to understand if mold is a trigger, pesticides, you know, even things like the car exhaust, you know, lead and these other things that come through. Prolonged stress, unresolved trauma, which is for many of us, you know, unresolved trauma might be from childhood or from teenage years. You know, these things tend to turn up in thyroid conditions, right? All right, so now I'm going to talk about LDN. So it's a useful tool, but it's not the whole answer. That's what you need to know. Low dose naltrexone. So I don't take it. I don't need it. If you're experiencing thyroid pain or pain in your body, it can be helpful because it's a very, 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 very low dose of an opioid. So it blocks the opioid receptors for a short time. And the body compensates by increasing endorphin and enkephalin production, which modulates the immune system and reduces inflammation. So the benefit, it can bring symptom relief for autoimmunity or pain. The limitation is that it manages the message, not the messenger. So that is the key point. Okay, it can help you with your symptoms, but it doesn't actually address the root cause. So if you have the mindset that this is autoimmunity and this is going to be with you forever and a day, and this is the only thing that can give you relief, just know that beyond that, you can get relief through looking through natural means, because there's always something that causes it. It's about getting to the root cause. Okay? A lot of people, I see that in all the thyroid groups, a lot of people are recommending and taking LDN. You know, it's not for everybody. If you have a very poor quality of life and you're absolutely debilitated and you're just needing some sort of level of pain relief, it can be helpful, and it's something that would need to be prescribed by your physician as well. So just be mindful of that, you know, it's just like everything. It's not the answer. It's just a tool. Okay, it's a tool. So the LDN can cool the surface fire, but true healing means removing the fuel beneath, which comes through from stress, toxins, gut imbalance, etc., etc. All right. So pathways to calm the fire. Step 1, calm the nervous system. Easier said than done, right? You know, many of my clients, we're still working on this area, even several months, because we're creatures of habit. And, it can be easier said than done. But to really change your way and change the way you do things, it takes a lot of observation and understanding and really drilling down into your specific picture and seeing your brain patterning and how to circuit break that. So, just continuing to respond in the same manner is not going to be helping your nervous system. So it requires quite a lot of work, deep inner work. And not, if you're just expecting a fix but you don't want to do the work, you're probably not going to get fixed. It's probably not going to get resolved. I'm just telling you that now. There's no shortcuts to health. There really isn't. The ones that roll up the sleeves and do the work, better still, do the work with practitioners like myself and my team that actually understand and know what's going on and get to the bottom of what's going on for you. They're the ones that get the transformation. They're the ones that get the resolve on their thyroid condition. They're the ones that get the resolution and the restoration, which is why we created the thyroid restoration roadmap. You know, I have clients that come to me and we have calls, and 50% of them go, yep, I'm in, I get it, I understand that I'm going to be supported, I understand that we're going to delve down and have a look at the root cause, and then we're going to heal at those deeper layers. I understand that I have some work to do, and I understand that I need to roll up my sleeves and work with you across this time and potentially be very vulnerable and change some patterns and the way in which we do things. And then there are other people, the other 50% of say, no, it's too expensive. No, I don't have the time. No, I don't want to do that, I mean, seriously, have a good think. What are you expecting? You've got a chronic debilitating condition that you've had for either months, years, or decades. It has multi-complex, origins, which are all triggering inflammation in your body. So it requires a whole system approach to healing. So seriously, what are you expecting? Are you expecting me to tell you that, oh, here's a formula and you'll get better? There's no such thing. I'm getting a little bit feisty here, but for very good reason. I get a little bit, it's like we've got a solution. We've got it here. It's just you're the one that needs to make the decision and take that leap of faith to move forward. I can't want it for you more than you want it for yourself. It's impossible. All right? But for you, that of course you need to like us, you need to trust us, and you need to understand that we've got your back and we've got your highest good in the forefront of our mind. 4 months. 4 months. Not necessarily to get resolution, but at the very least to get very clear, be super clear on what's going on in your body. For some people, the resolution, it takes a bit longer. You need more work to do. You need to do it for longer. Keep on the protocol and do it for longer. Okay? So, just really sit with that for a little bit. It's taken how many months, years, decades to get to where you are now? What we've wrapped up in a comprehensive program with bespoke functional testing and one-on-one support and mentoring is within 4 months. And some people get the resolution, some people get complete restoration, other people get complete clarity with what's going on, because we can't put a timeline on your health. For some people it's years, for some people it's months. But at the very least, you've got a massive leap forward. So if this is something that you're wanting, ladies and gents, I work with men too. If this is something that you're wanting, just type roadmap. Type roadmap. It's as simple as that. And we will have a discussion, a deep discussion, and you can just see whether what we do is going to be helpful for you, right? An investment in your health is an investment in yourself for the rest of your life, because it has compound interest. Because what you do across that 4 months compounds for the rest of your life. It compounds. You don't unknow what you suddenly know. Just like this beautiful client that I saw this morning, you know, she is already in the compound phase. Her health is compounding. She's going amazingly and just really reaping the benefits. You know, we've gone beyond the physical. We're working in mindset. We're working spiritually. We're working with emotional intelligence now. You know, to really get that fitness, that resilience. So where do you want to be? Like, where are we now? What, mid-October? Where do you want to be mid-January? Where do you want to be in the start of 2026? Just ask yourself that question. Do you want a solution? We've got the solution. We've got the solution, right? So if you're wanting a solution, type solution. We'll get in touch. Now, I need to go through this. So I'm going to break this down, right? I'm going to be doing a blog, okay? So basically, this backs up everything we do, all right? So I wrote the Thyroid Restoration Roadmap, and then I read this the other day, right? And it talks about all of the things that I've spoken about today as being potential root causes. It's here in this scientific paper, all right? And it talks about all the different foods, and I'm just going to go through some of them, you know? Iodine, you know, like it's the Goldilocks mineral. We don't want too much, we don't want too little. You know, too much will cause issue with your thyroid, inflammation. Too little will cause an issue with your thyroid. So we need to understand what's going on with that iodine. Iron as well. You know, we need iodine. We need iron for thyroid peroxidase to work. You know, if you're low in iron, that could be one of the triggers for your thyroid issue. We don't want to have too much iron because that can be carcinogenic and cause chronic inflammation in the tissues. Selenium. Our thyroid function depends on glutathione, peroxidases, deiodinases, and selenoproteins. We need selenium, right? High doses of selenium are toxic. So, you know, it's also a Goldilocks mineral, which our thyroid depends on. We don't want to be having too much. We don't want to be having too little. Zinc. It's a cofactor for over 300 enzyme reactions, and it happens to be required for the T3 receptor signaling, right? If you've got low levels of zinc, there's going to be poor signaling of T3, all right? So that can cause oxidative stress. What is oxidative stress? Inflammation. Vitamin D, you know, we need that. It actually regulates more than 200 human genes. Right, so we basically want good amounts of vitamin D to help with autoimmunity. Proteins, you know, low proteins cause decreased plasma transthyretin. Sorry, I've got that word wrong. Basically, we need proteins. We need proteins. They are the backbone. They are the building blocks for our body. All right, so there is no real restriction on protein. There's not a lot said about protein and thyroid, but we need protein to regulate our blood sugar for all systems go, for these amino acids that are the backbone to many building blocks within our body. Okay, inositol as well. TSH signaling as part of, you know, the whole thyroid process requires inositol, which is vitamin B8. All right. Manganese. High doses of manganese has an antioxidant effect, right? So fluoride, toxic, completely toxic fluoride, right? If you're still drinking tap water without taking out the fluoride, think again. It was brought in World War II. Hitler actually initiated fluoride in water. Right? What does fluoride also do? It constricts our pineal gland. What does our pineal gland do? It helps with melatonin. It also actually creates that beautiful link to our higher self. So I'm getting really spiritual here, but have a look it up, do your research. Fluoride, pineal gland. What does it do to the pineal gland, which is just here in the center? Right? It calcifies it, all right? Have a look at that. Lead, toxic. It disturbs thyroid selenoproteins. Cadmium, toxic. Chromium, oxidative changes of proteins. Iron in high doses is an issue. Okay, aluminium, neurotoxin. Nickel, carcinogenic. Tin, okay, not a lot said about. Oh, like lethal intoxication cases can appear with large amounts but are rare. Okay, of course. All right, so let's just move on. Let's just move on. Okay, talking about leaky gut, autoimmune diet, anti-inflammatory diet, low residue diet, Mediterranean diet, diet rich in omega-3, omega-9, fibers, complex carbohydrates, minerals, and vitamins, and secondary plant metabolites. These lower the inflammatory load and balance the gut microbiome. Mediterranean diet, okay? So we talking about protein here, Nordic diet, FODMAP diet, elimination diet, vegan diet, possible deficiency in some essential amino acids. So be careful there, all of the vegans out there. Okay, inflammatory proteins, gluten, antithyroglobulin antibody can be produced with gluten, all right? Most people do well without gluten, and I'm a big fan of gluten-free, only when it's homemade, because there's a lot of inflammation in those nasty products that are labeled gluten-free. So just be careful there. Be careful of the bread that says gluten-free. Be careful of the muesli bar that says gluten-free. Read the ingredients. There's a lot of inflammation in that packet right there. All right, okay, so we are running out of time. So I am going to break this down in a blog for you so that you ladies and gents can have a read to understand all the little knock-on effects of different foods and different chemicals that can cause impact to our thyroid. But let me just package it this way. There's never one thing. There are triggers. There are triggers. There's most likely an overarching root cause and multiple triggers. So really getting to understand your triggers is gold. Honestly, it is gold. I've had Hashimoto's for several years now. Last December, I did a half Ironman event. Do you think I'd be able to do a half Ironman event if my thyroid was out of whack? Absolutely not. Of course I wouldn't. But like I've got good balance in my body. I've got good resilience in my body. Like my hormones are balanced. Everything knows what's going on in my body because I've been working through natural solutions for a good decade now. So, if you're wanting to get to the bottom of it, please step up for yourself. Come out, reach out to us, and then we will help you. We'll just jump on a call. We'll have a chat through to see what's going to work for you and create a plan, and then we can move forward from there. What is 2026 going to look like for you? At the end of this 4 months, what is it going to look like for you? It's your life, it's your health, it's your decision. That's it from me. Lots of love and blessings, and have a beautiful day. And until then, let's connect. Until then, I will see you next week for the next training. All right, bye for now.